following is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com. My name is Lloyd Kirby. I am the marketing manager here at WLCN, and thank you for tuning in. Feel free to give us a call, 217-648-5510. If you have questions or comments, we have two guests with us today. So two for the price of one, I guess you could say. Dr. David Hepler is with us, as well as Emily Davenport. They are with the Logan County Board. And folks, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for asking.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So let's get right to it. How are things in Logan County?
They're busy, and which is a good thing. We got a lot of projects going on. Hopefully, we're going to vote on a couple large wind projects this month, which would be very beneficial for the county. We've got CO2 sequestration project in front of us that might move forward. We got a couple potential solar farms, coming in maybe. Dave, you want?
Yeah, I can join in too. Yeah, if we have a problem on the county side, it's that we have too much in the way of economic development activity occurring, and that's a nice problem to have.
Oh, sure.
And I think you don't want to single any one person out, but we have an extremely effective economic development director who's also managing zoning. And I think one reason why and that is former Mayor Elizabeth Kavelman, but I think one reason it is successful is that we've had very, very good people in the past, but they have not had the coordination. And within the last year, the board felt that economic development and zoning should work much more hand in glove. And I think that is contributing to a lot of what we're seeing, as well as the leadership from Mrs. Davenport, the chairman, and board members that may not agree on things but are willing to listen to each other and try and work things out.
Sure, and I'm sure, as is most cases when you serve on a board, there's a lot of, there are some rewarding aspects to it, but there's also some people who maybe bring you their concerns, and there maybe are some not so much fun aspects to it. What have you folks enjoyed the most about serving on the board?
Seeing things come to fruition, the projects, what it's doing for the county, especially like our latest one is Scully Park. We've really put a lot of money into that, and the ice rink will open later this month, and it also doubles as pickleball court throughout the rest of the year. So it's things like that we can bring to the community to give back to them, and just anything extra that we can have for people to do and get out, and actually bring in people from outside the community, to come to Lincoln and Logan County and see what we have to offer. So those are the kind of things that I enjoy getting out of it.
Yeah, and I've watched that same type of thing. We had new park equipment put in at Latham Park, and Scully Park is undergoing a renaissance. And, we have the issues like we will have later this week and next week, where you sometimes have a room full of people hashing things out and differences, but when you see a whole lot of little kids, when you see them there with their parents enjoying parks that maybe in the years past they didn't have as much enjoyment, and now the ice skating rink, which Jim Westbecker, who serves on our board, was very instrumental in advancing that project. That's nice. One thing, and we were talking a few minutes before the meeting, that in the 4 years that Mrs. Davenport's been chairman, the county board, unlike many other municipalities, has been able to cut the tax rate 3 times. Wow. So it's lower now than 4 years ago when the board elected Emily as chairman. And in the previous 20 years, I think it was only cut once, or close to 20 years. So, where a lot of communities with a lot of good people every year are raising tax rates, and the public in those communities is just assuming the tax bill's going to keep going up. In Logan County, it's been able to go the other direction. Okay,
very good. While we've got the skating rink, since that was mentioned here, can you tell me more about, are there particulars about when it's going to open? How's it going to be operated?
Sure.
Do people need to bring their own skates? Will there be skates there?
Oh, sure, a little bit of both. So yeah, it's really cool. I've never seen it. It's synthetic ice. So basically, we could have it out year round, and people could ice skate in August. Okay. But it's supposed to be almost mimicking 95% of what real ice would be like.
Oh, okay.
So yes, you can bring your skates if you own some, and then we also have rentals available. We've partnered with the Park District, which is very exciting because this is new to us and new to the Park District, so they were Do you need to get that?
No, keep going.
Okay, so they were nice enough to work with us several months ago, and we are going to use some of their staff to help man it during the days that it's open. And yeah, so it's exciting. Do I keep going, or
No,
do you
keep
need?
going,
Okay,
keep
yeah.
going.
So basically, they're going to be able to. The public can register online and buy their tickets through the park district. They'll have their website all set up for it, and they can reserve, skates for their kids or for themselves. And we also have ice aids, is what they kind of call them. That if you're not really good at ice skating, you kind of looks like a walker almost.
Oh, okay.
So we'll have some of those available. The shed just got delivered yesterday, so that's exciting. And then hopefully next week we should start laying down the pieces of the ice rink. It looks like a giant puzzle, basically. It's going to go together, and we're going to have lots of Christmas lights this year, which I've never really remember seeing done in the parks before downtown. We're also going to light up Latham Park as well. So
very cool.
Yeah. So.
Okay. All right. Well, we did have the phone ring, so let's see. Caller, do you have a question for the members of the board?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Actually, if I can ask you to hold on just one second, if you want to
Okay.
either put them on or listen to them. Okay. Caller, go ahead, please.
Sure. Okay, I have a question specifically about the budget initially. I see in the proposed budget there are permitting fee dollars included. Isn't that anticipatory dollars assuming passage of wind farm projects?
Okay. Did you folks hear that?
I only got half of it.
I can answer that. You're absolutely right. I think, and this has been something that the board has done in the past, where if they feel that there's a revenue source that is going to come in, that just like even property taxes, that they factor that into the budget. Since there is some uncertainty, though, last night the Finance Committee took a vote and it was unanimous. I actually made the motion that if the project does not pass the board, the one of the two wind farms, then that money that would come from it be immediately removed from the budget.
Okay, doesn't that, though, initially put pressure on your board members to approve the budget and any projects pending?
Can you repeat?
Could you repeat that, please? I didn't have the headphones on.
Sure. My question was, doesn't that put pressure on your board members to approve the budget and any projects pending when you put that anticipatory dollars into your budget?
No, not really, because what we've done is we've put it's a separate line item in the budget under wind permit fees. So when we expend that money out of the general revenue fund, we put it in a contingency line item. So therefore, it's not going to be spent on, everyday, day-to-day operations of the county. So if that money's in a contingency fund, if it doesn't get to, if the projects don't pass and we don't have the money in the contingency fund, then, so be it. The county will still go on with day-to-day operations. We have the funds for that. This is just kind of like more of an added bonus that we could put towards projects like, updating our jail, which is in significant disrepair, things like that. But no, it should not affect anybody's vote on the budget at all.
So that typically has been a common practice for the Logan County Board to do that in budgets?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Is that typically a common practice for the Logan County Board to do that in their budgets?
I know we've done past couple years, Dave. I don't know if it's...
We did that. We've done that 2 or 3 times with different projects, and I think you make a very good point. And most of us have had these discussions, sometimes even a committee, that are you able to make a fair and unbiased vote on a project if you've already voted to place that money into the budget? But the members who have already voted to place that money in the budget, and I think they wouldn't have done that unless they felt they could also take a step back and make a proper vote, on a project that might come before us.
So if that doesn't come to fruition, then what you're saying in the past, typically that money will be removed? It won't be accounted for?
Right. So if the projects don't go through, we won't put the money in there. To me, I just look at it as bonus money, basically. If, these projects come through, they take out the permits, we get the permit money, and that money right there can be used, like I said earlier, for, projects like at the jail. Anything, that comes up along the way throughout the year that elected officials might need, particular software or, just things like that. To me, I look at it as bonus money. It's not day-to-day operation money that has to make the county work.
Okay. I have another question. I see there's a specially called meeting on the 16th. What action do you intend to take at that meeting versus the full board meeting on the 22nd?
Well, so the 22nd, we had to push back because of the budget, because it has to be on display for 30 days. So that kind of messed things up a little bit. The 16th, we thought, I mean, it was my call. I figured just because we do have 2 wind farms in front of us, we have the budget, you know, and we have a couple other things. Plus, we have several members leaving, you know. I just figured instead of cramming it all in one night, if we broke it up, that might help some, you know, people. Because if not, you know, we've been known to be at the courthouse past 10 o'clock at night, you know, with these meetings, and the alarms go off on us. So hopefully by breaking it up into 2 nights this month, we, you know, might not be sitting through 5-hour-long meetings.
So then what do you actually intend to vote on the 16th?
For the 16th, the agenda, Top Hat Wind Farm should be on there for sure. I believe we have some budget amendments that we just passed last night that'll probably come, or actually those might wait till the 22nd. There's also the intergovernment agreement that we have with the Park District regarding the ice rink, and maybe 1 or 2 other small things. And the rest of the business should be done on the 22nd, I think.
And the CO2.
Oh, and also the CO2 sequestration. We have an ordinance amendment in front of us that we'd like to get voted on as well on the 16th.
So that 16th meeting, will that be also on the 3rd floor of the courthouse at 6 o'clock?
Correct. The next 3 meetings, which will be the 10th, which is this Thursday, will be our workshop. We're going to have it 3rd floor, as well as the 16th and the 22nd, because usually these wind farm projects draw a lot of crowd. So we just, you know, we asked Judge Wright if he'd allow us to use his chambers, and he said he would. So yes, they'll be at 6 o'clock at the 3rd floor of the courtroom.
Okay. I have one final concern or comment, and then I'll let you go. Appreciate your insight. And that concern is specifically about the Top Hat project, whereas over half of those wind turbines are in what they call the mitigation zone, which states significant impacts are likely. The reality is it's just too close to the Doppler radar. I can't see how that's a safety bonus for everybody that lives here to be concerned that the National Weather Service Doppler radar has to struggle with all these turbines in the mitigation zone.
Yeah, and I can address that because some of us, especially in the last week, have gotten a lot of calls on that. For Top Hat or Invenergy to even make an application to the county board, the meteorologists with the National Weather Service had to review their layout and approve it. So, well, I think there's a lot of concern by the general public. For myself, at least, you know, I'm going to defer to the experts, which is the National Weather Service. Also, once the project is approved, if it is approved by the county board, before they get a building permit, the National Weather Service has to go back and do a retrospective study to just make sure that what was passed will not impact the Doppler radar in any way. So I think that there is a lot of expert oversight by, you know, people who are highly trained, and thus far they've seen no impediment to the Doppler radar, but they will have a final say before any building permits would be issued.
Yeah, I guess I would beg to differ because there are opposing opinions on that in the expert field, and I think there'll be more discussion about that unfolding as the days proceed.
Yeah, and I just say, when I was contacted, we were away on vacation, I was talking to a lady, and I said, if these arguments and the sources that they have, I haven't, studied it, they should really be directed to the National Weather Service. And I said, I'm sure if there's a basis for this, they would be more than willing to, reconsider or to take another look at a project. But, again, for myself, I'm going to go by what the National Weather Service will say. But I did go ahead and email them last Friday trying to get, out of them any recommendations they might have for the board if they felt it was appropriate to introduce them as what we call conditions, additional requirements for the project.
And I will say, I was contacted by a local radio station, TV news station reporter last week, and he's, doing some research on this, particularly the radar, and he was finally able to touch base with somebody with the National Weather Service out in Oklahoma, and he was told basically that this is what we do with our conditions for these projects is typical what they do throughout the whole entire country, and so he said right now it has not failed them to this date to how they approve these projects all over the country, basically.
Okay, I will, let's see, I just had one other thing. I do know that there's, as far as the National Weather Service being able to talk, there is what's called an anti-lobbying act, and that prohibits the folks from the National Weather Service to speak in an open forum and conveying really what their concerns are. It's unfortunate that act is in place, but I do know that indeed is there. And those that are actually employed by the National Weather Service, a federal agency, can't convey their thoughts and concerns.
Well, I mean, they may not be able to individually, but that's why the National Weather Service, as an agency, has people that presumably do this for a living and do it on a week-in, week-out basis, so they can issue an opinion that I would assume is an expert opinion on behalf of the agency, rather than, relying on anecdotal statements. But I know what you're saying. My brother retired not too long ago from the Army Corps of Engineers, and he was under the same type of restrictions.
Yeah, they can't compete against other agencies is the thing. Governmental agencies, they just can't do that per the law. Unfortunately, there's not legislation that allows that to happen, which there should be, but you'd think there would be for the safety of the people in the community.
Oh.
That's all I've got. I'm sure you have other callers that are waiting.
Now, we don't have callers, but we do have to take a break here, but we appreciate the call. Thanks,
yes,
thanks for tuning in. So, yes, we are due for our first break, so we will go ahead and do that now. Once again, 217-648-5510, the number to call. Our guests today are Emily Davenport and Dr. David Hepler with the Logan County Board, and we'll be back more with them right after this. And we are back on the 4 p.m. 411. Boyd Kirby here with WLCN, joined by Emily Davenport and Dr. David Hepler with the Logan County Board. And we have another caller on the line. You are our most popular guest. So, caller, if you're there, did you have a question for the board members?
Yes, sir. I was calling in regards to the Top Hat Wind Farm,
Okay.
and I'm a little aghast as to why we have only known about this for about the last 30 days. As we look into this more, Top Hat's been in the neighborhood for 5 or 6 years, trying to do some land grabbing, and now, as I talk to a lot of residents, 50% of the people don't even know what's going on, and 95% of the people I talk to or more, they don't even want the thing in the county. Can they explain why the county board has not communicated to the citizens and residents of the county what's going on?
Okay.
Do you want to take that, Dave? Or you?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. This project has been in development for over 7 years. In fact, there was an open house which Bill Thomas, who was doing work for the county at the time, put on at a restaurant in Atlanta, Illinois, with many members of the public there in the fall of 2016. I believe that a large number of landowners had been contacted out in the footprint, and this probably goes back 2 or 3 years. And, because obviously they needed landowners to be able to sign up and have a project. And in most of these rural areas, word gets around pretty quickly. The county board has done as much noticing as we possibly could, and every meeting we've had with these people has been done in full view of the public. So, it's always unfortunate when people are not aware of something, but, I think that the people in the Top Hat footprint have been aware of that for, probably for several years, because they've been trying to solicit people to participate.
Right, and we usually get monthly updates too at our planning and zoning meeting. So, the topic has come up multiple times for several years now. And I think a lot of people are now just aware because they got the mailings for the ZBA hearing 30 days out, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, you are our most popular guest. We have another caller there. Caller, did you have a question for the board members?
Do you think it's fair for the public to only have about 30 days to do their footwork that are against this?
Well, like Dr. Hepler just said, this has been going on for over 7 years. It's taken that long to secure land and, and do the footprint and everything. And so now it's come to fruition. So that's when they had to actually turn in an application. And that's when the time clock started with the 30 days where, we had to have a ZBA hearing. The notices had to go out. And I believe actually by statute, we only had to give 15 days notice, I think, if I remember. I could be wrong, though. And we actually did 30 days. And like I said, before, we've talked about this almost at every single monthly committee meeting that we've had for planning and zoning. We've always got updates from the previous zoning officer. So we've been talking about this for years at our meetings.
Yeah, one final thought on my part. It came out that 75% of the people that have signed up for this wind farm, in other words, to have a turbine on their property or transmission lines, etc., 75% of those people don't even live in the state. They are non-resident landowners, and I really don't feel it's fair that because they're lining their pockets with some cash that they're going to put onto the residents of this county what we have to endure and look with.
I understand that a lot of people have brought that to our attention. My thing, it just goes back to principle. I don't think we should be able to tell somebody what they can and can't do with their land. Even though they might not live here year round, they still pay property taxes like everybody else. And so I feel that if what they choose to do with their land, as long as it's not a huge hazard and going, detrimental to somebody's health or way of life, then, I feel that they should be able to do whatever they want to with their land.
Okay. I believe we have another caller there. Would you like to go ahead, please?
Is that me?
It is you.
Okay, sorry, thank you. All right, I want to go back to the topic of the DAPA radar station. I had actually spoken with one of the employees there at the DAPA station named Andy, and I explained to him what I was seeing in the agreement between Top Hat and the NOAA station, and he basically told me that he did not think that the turbine should be in the mitigation zone. The problem was that there was no jurisdiction that the radar station had to prevent it. So then I went on to ask him, I said, are there any other standing agreements like this one? And if you read the agreement, it's very, very weak. It's one-sided, very weak, and there's no penalties out of compliance in the agreement. And I asked him, I said, are there any other agreements on file or you guys are exercising like this one? And he said there's one other one that's on file, but they have not exercised it. And he went on to say he doesn't even know if it'll work. I think the issue is that, back to what previous caller said, there's no jurisdiction, and then there's the anti-lobbying constraints on from one agency to the next. They can't express their concerns the way they need to. And I think the issue here is that they've got kind of a barrier between these departments. But functionally, these turbines being in that mitigation zone are a problem, and the radar station will admit to that if I think they're interviewed. And going back to, I think Mrs. Davenport mentioned that there's a standard in the country. Well, I'd beg to differ. There's many articles you can find where these turbines are causing problems in these Doppler zones. And in fact, if you study the folks north of us, Canada, they're trying to go back and put some regulations in because they're seeing nationwide issues with this. So I'd like to hear the response, your guys' response, Mr. Hepler and Ms. Davenport, about kind of what I said about Andy's comments he made to me on the phone, and then about these other studies that show clear problem with these turbines being in these mitigation zones. And the mitigation zone, as was mentioned earlier, is about 11.1 mile radius. Some folks even think that it should be as far out as 30. And I'll close with this last comment, is that you can go on today and go onto the radar images from our radar station and turbines in place. You can see them on the map. They already show up. And the ones we're talking about in Top Hat are much closer than those. So I'd be interested in knowing how you guys get your professional opinions and come to your conclusions.
Okay, thank you for the call. Either one of you want to jump on that?
Well, that's not. We're not the ones soliciting that. That's the National Weather Service. For them to make an application, has to review the layout before they even apply and have their experts. And personally, I made my career relying on people who were much more expert than myself, and I based it on the credentialing that they had that I didn't have. I'm sure the people who are doing this type of evaluation for the National Weather Service are highly credentialed, highly trained meteorologists. And I frankly would have a little bit of a concern about, an employee of any agency trying to undermine the people who are designated experts to make these decisions on behalf of the agency. And I certainly hope that's not happening here, but I think at some point we have to trust the experts, whether they're with the major universities, the National Weather Service, the Department of Transportation, the Illinois Department of Public Health. And again, I think they should make these arguments back to National Weather Service and see if they can convince them to take a different position, or do so retrospectively before a permit is issued.
All right. Well, we've got one more caller here, I believe. Caller, did you have a comment or a question?
Hey, good. Thank you for taking my call. This is about the Top Hat Wind Farm as well. And I was just wondering how long these turbines are in use, or proposed length of the project. And then what is our county's role in the decommissioning plan for these turbines and all the concrete that's laid in the foundation? I'm just curious who is in charge of the decommissioning and how that will go about.
Okay. Thank you for the call.
Well, too.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. All right. There was a couple of questions in there that there has to be a decommissioning plan in place and approved before a building permit is issued. There also have to be road use agreements that would be negotiated by an attorney representing the county, and both of those are usually handled through the county engineer's office, who then brings it to the county board. The trending, though, and Mrs. Cavalman and I were on this call about 6 or 8 weeks ago through one of the national laboratories, is not so much towards decommissioning, but towards what they call repowering. The one that's up near Emden and goes over into Tazewell County is probably going to pursue a repowering next year. So that doesn't mean that at some point there won't be an end of life, but that'll extend the life of that project probably another 15 years. But we went ahead and retained an engineer to assist our county engineer in drafting and bringing a decommissioning plan to ourselves, and also the state of Illinois essentially underwrites that by having to have a plan on place with them through the Department of Agriculture.
Okay, so lots to unpack there, but you're so popular. We've got yet one more call. Caller, do you have a question or comment for the county board members?
Yes, I do. I have a question. I believe it's called the Hilltopper Wind Farm over here in Mount Pulaski was bought and sold. It's bought and sold, and I believe Sugar Creek also was too, bought and sold. Has Top Hat already sold this project yet?
I believe they have a
Either
partner in the project, and but how their division of duties would play out. Many times one of the partners will develop the project, another partner will be more of an operational partner. And I think this, it's the nature of a lot of large businesses. I've been in Lincoln for almost 40 years, and I've seen, some of our factories that we've had, bought and sold and bought and sold and bought and sold, sometimes with foreign-owned buyers and others. So we try and focus primarily on the project itself and the zoning, not on who might happen to own it.
Or what might happen down the road from that.
Yes.
And if you start basing everything on contingencies, then you don't really have a whole lot to base on. So,
Right.
well, do you all want to stick around a few more minutes? Do you have a hot date or anything?
No, if you'll have us, we'll stay.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. We normally go till 4:30, but we've gotten a lot of calls here, and we had a few more topics on the agenda we were hoping to discuss. So we will be back in just a few minutes with more from County Board members, Chair Emily Davenport, as well as Board Member David.
If you love them enough to crawl into a play place to get them to come down, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
And we are back on the 4 p.m. 411. I am Lloyd Kirby, joined by Emily Davenport and Dr. David Hepler. Did you know you were so popular before you got here?
No.
So, we obviously lots of interest in the wind farm issue, the Top Hat wind farm, but there are other things going on in the county as well. Sequestration, did I get it correct?
You did.
All right, very good. So I know that's been a hot topic. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on with that as far as the county goes?
Sure. This was brought to, the contact was made by and through our Economic Development Director, Mrs. Cavalman, and there are two partners who are pursuing this project, one called Navigator and the other Vault. One of the Navigator representatives is a retired state senator, Laura Donahue, who knew Mrs. Cavalman from before, and because of that personal connection, a conference call was set up. What carbon sequestration is, essentially, it's an initiative being pursued by the U.S. Department of Energy, and it's been actively pursued for almost 20 years, starting with President Bush through Obama, Trump, and now Biden, to take carbon dioxide, which is a byproduct of the ethanol industry, and liquefy it into probably its most pure form, and instead of releasing it into the atmosphere as a toxic gas for us all to breathe, to pipe it to locations in the country that have the appropriate and unique geology where it can be then piped about 7,000 feet under the earth and last as long as the planet does down there. Okay. So it's a lot of something in it for everybody. The people who are hardcore environmentalists definitely support it, so it avoids more global warming. It's certainly going to increase the production and the need for Midwest corn at the ethanol plants, and that in turn will contribute towards fuel self-sufficiency, which this country, definitely needs. The county went ahead and retained a true subject matter expert, Dr. Roy, a semi-retired professor from the University of Illinois, but he's also consulted to the federal EPA, the Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Department of Energy, and even been used as an expert by the Justice Department. So, we're being counseled by somebody who's made this part of his life's work, but also has a lot of credibility. And all we're trying to do now is to put an amendment in place that would allow a developer to apply in the future. Okay. For this injection process that would have to go through conditional use zoning. The county could put conditions on it. But then, even if the county approved it, the permit is actually issued by the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Okay. So, but there are a lot of safeguards. The revenues to the county would be very, very significant. Probably at a low end, about $1.5 million new dollars, upwards of $3 million new dollars a year. So it would be a game changer for what Logan County government could do for the people of this county.
Do you also want to mention the aquifer? Because I think that's some people are worried about that, but it's actually.
I'm glad Ms. Davenport brought that up, because one of the things Dr. Roy has talked about is that one of the reasons why they're looking so closely at Logan County is that only about half of the county has the Muhammad Aquifer underneath it. So we have large areas where there could be an injection down to that 7,000-foot threshold that wouldn't even touch the aquifer. Dr. Roy has put a couple of papers out. He's shown in his papers that in the event of, even if there was a pipeline leak or break, as happened a couple of years ago in Mississippi, there would be no ill effect on human health or the environment. And I asked him if he would do a paper on a catastrophic leak into the Muhammad Aquifer, and he did a worst-case scenario analysis, and there would still be no effect on our drinking water, but his recommendation was that with so much of Logan County not having the aquifer, that an injection site be found that wouldn't even have to go through the aquifer.
Okay. So big things ahead for the county, it sounds like. Another topic, and I mentioned this to you before we went on the air, the last week we had a caller who called in when Lincoln Mayor Tracy Welch was here, asking about updates about the courthouse.
Yeah.
And Mayor Welch was kind enough to say, there's county board people coming in next week, why don't you call back? We didn't get that call, but do you have any updates in terms of what's happening with the courthouse and the restoration process?
Yeah, so if anybody's been downtown, had to have noticed. There's a lot of mud going on right now around there. It's a lot of fencing and a lot of big equipment. What they've been doing the past couple of weeks are drilling, boring down in about 800 feet, I believe, for the geothermal system that's going to go in. I believe they're able to drill about 2 holes a day, and they should be done within the next couple of weeks. So hopefully that'll all get kind of cleaned up and put back to normal. And then on the inside, the stained glass and all that and the cupola has been being worked on as well. So we're hoping that that's moving along nicely. The only thing we're facing, like everybody else, is inflation and delays in supplies. So this has really kind of messed with our timeline. We didn't expect this 2 years ago, 3 years ago when we started. So we're hoping that things maybe pick up, but we also are trying to do our due diligence with the money, and not. Some people are asking 15, 20% more than they were asking a year ago, so we've got a lot to deal with and handle, but it's going along nicely. Some of the employees will be moving out in the next couple months. We've rented the ore building across the street, so they're going to be relocated over there for a few months while the third floor is taken care of, and then they'll work their way down. But yeah, really exciting stuff. It's going to be beautiful when it's completed.
Well, can I jump in on something before we sign off?
Absolutely.
One other topic that it sometimes goes below the radar, but it could also be a game changer for this county in the years to come, is that we are actively pursuing a countywide broadband, which would allow any provider to utilize the infrastructure that the county would put in place. And I'd say, never want to single any one person out, but we have Mrs. Davenport has been strongly pushing this. One of our members, Keenan Leisman, who represents this district that we're sitting in now, has been invaluable. He does IT for Memorial Systems. He's been willing to share his expertise. And then Mrs. Cavalman again, because she's got a lot of experience in grant writing. And that team has been working phenomenally. We had what we called ARPA money, which was federal money available. And I give the board and the people I've mentioned a lot of credit, because there would have been a lot of day-to-day expenses that we could have spent it on, but what do you have to show for it 2 or 3 years from now? Where this way, hopefully in several years, there'll be a countywide broadband system so you can live or work anywhere in this county, and you're also not held to the particular provider.
That would be awesome. So
Yeah.
Right.
I know out here we would love to have a high-speed.
You will.
Oh, I'm sure.
broadband.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, we have actually gone over, so they aren't paying me overtime. I don't know about you folks. So, want to thank Emily Davenport and Dr. David Hepler for being our guests today. And next week we will have. Lost my place here. Donna Cunningham, the Youth Services Librarian with the Lincoln Public Library.
Oh, nice.
Then in 2 weeks, Angie Stolzenberg with the Lincoln Memorial Hospital Community Health Collaborative. Once again, just to recap for our audience, the votes coming up, or the next county board meetings where Top Hat and other topics will be discussed.
Yes, Thursday night at 6 o'clock, third floor courtroom will be the workshop, the full board, so that's when the discussion happens. Nothing official will be decided that night. And then on the 16th, which is the following Wednesday, we will definitely vote on Top Hat, the CO2 amendment. We might possibly vote on Pike Creek, depending on, how the length of the discussion in the evening goes. And then on the 22nd, we will definitely vote on the county's annual budget. So,
Okay, very good. So plenty of opportunity to get out and attend some meetings and watch our county officials in action. So once again, thank you two for being with us. This has been the 4 p.m. 411, and we'll be back next week at 4 o'clock. Thanks for tuning in. The preceding program is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com.